Then I also think it's a good time to start now, since everybody that's on here was on time for this webinar. So thank you everybody for joining us today. My name is Geert. I'm the founder of Northbridge, and today we're gonna have a webinar with the topic CPT and internships. I'm very happy to introduce our guest speaker, Josh, who is the Director of International Affairs and the founder of Ask a DSO. We have had two webinars in the past, and we are very excited to do this again now, as this is a very hot topic now since the fall semester just started. So yeah, Josh, welcome. Thank you so much, and I'm gonna hand it over to you right now.
Thank you very much, Garrett, and thank you everyone for coming. Let me just go ahead, share my screen. We'll start this presentation. All right, there we go. Okay, so we're going to be talking, like Garrett said, about CPT and internships today, and specifically what international students can do to prepare yourselves to be successful. Because as we all know, life for international students is just more difficult. It's already a difficult job market. Jerome Powell, actually, the chair of the Federal Reserve, came out and admitted that over the last week, that's a tough job market for young people and for international students, especially having the additional layers of visa navigation and work authorization on top of that. It's a challenging environment. So we're going to go over how to best position yourselves here. Um, Let me see. There we go. Okay. So for the purpose of this talk, we're going to keep it relatively focused on CPT and job landing strategies. We'll touch a little bit on OPT, on H-1B. Right now, we're going to focus primarily on the process of getting curricular practical training during your program of study, and how to navigate the job search field and developing that plan as soon as possible, because as we'll see, the decisions you're making now are going to impact you 2, 3, 4 years down the line. So with that being said, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Dr. Josh Schoonover. I've been a DSO and working in international affairs for the last 9 years. Over that time, I've helped over 10,000 international students. You can see some of my stats there up on the screen. I'm very proud of helping over 1,600 students get H-1B approvals and over 400 get green cards, because we all know that while the F1 is a non-immigrant visa, for many of us, it's a starter path towards bigger dreams while we're here in the US. I've also been speaking at the NAFSA regional and annual conferences. If you're not familiar with NAFSA, it's the largest organization of international educators in the entire United States. And my focus has been on promoting CPT and why more schools should offer it, and have it be something that they offer as a benefit to international students. I'm actually speaking next month in Pasadena at the Region 12 conference, where I'm highlighting the benefits of CPT participation for graduates who participated in CPT versus those who didn't. And I'm the director of LA Peer, which is the community of designated school officials across campuses here in Southern California, where I live. I'm based in Long Beach, California. So I eat, breathe, live this stuff, and really excited to share, some of that with you today. I'll start with something that is relatively self-explanatory, why work experience matters. Um, and this is one of the things that I share at my talks. For every single college student during the course of their education career, they're told, get an internship, get a job, get a summer internship, get some experience. So then when you graduate, you have those letters of recommendation, you have that work experience to pair with your diploma to make you a more attractive job applicant, job candidate. And yet, even though we do this with every single student, for some reason, a lot of people put up the bar when it comes to international students and say, wait, not you, because it makes us feel uncomfortable for whatever reason. But it shouldn't. This should be this is a matter of equity and making sure that opportunities are available to every student that comes through, the university setting. Work experience helps you, especially being somebody that might not come from America, maybe not even come from a Western organization, get adapted to US customs, US expectations, and things of that nature that will better prepare you for, future interviews for full-time positions. And obviously, lots of students who start off doing CPT during their program of study end up working with that employer full-time on OPT after they graduate. So the journey, if you want to map it into a couple steps, we'll start off with this, not the yellow brick road. And I just realized I referenced literally a 100-year-old movie because that's the age I'm at now in my life. We have our blue brick road here. It starts off with obviously having F1 student status. I deal with it relatively frequently, and I get it. I just had to, push back on this again just last week. International students want to be there for their employers and they want to work late, and I get it. There's an incredible work ethic, the drive to succeed, and not just to get your American dream by accident, but really to earn it through merit. It is very strong with international students. But once that student status goes away, everything else goes away too. So the most important thing while you're here on an F1 visa is to make sure that you're enrolled full time and that you're maintaining good academic standing, because uh, if you fall below your GPA requirements for your program, that can lead you to getting put on academic probation, which might compromise your CPT eligibility. Over the long term, it could put your enrollment at risk. Um, so that's more of a slow burn type risk. But the instant you fall below full time, full course load of enrollment, you violated your status, and your designated school official has no choice but to terminate your CVIS record. So very, very important that you're doing those things first, taking care of the base first. In mental health and personal development, they reference being on an airplane, right? And if there's turbulence and the oxygen masks fall, what we're always told to put our own mask on first. Well, this is the equivalent for international students here. Put your mask on first. Make sure your student status is safe first. I've seen it happen. I'm gonna move on after this, I promise. But I've seen it happen where somebody, their company was filing for the H-1B for them, and their school had to terminate their record because they had violated their status, and it's devastating at that point. So don't let yourself get to that. Um, because we want you to be able to enjoy all these benefits that we're about to go over, which starts with, CPT, work experience that you're able to get. It is 100% legal. Not every employer is aware of that, and we'll talk about some ways to kind of navigate that process in a little bit here. And then for those of you that want to then move on to OPT after you graduate, that's a fantastic availability also, which then opens up different long-term options, whether it be H-1B, green cards, NIWs, EB-2s, or things of that nature. So I've mentioned CPT a few times already. It stands for Curricular Practical Training. It's work authorization that allows international students to work while they're in the US in a position that's directly related to their program of study. That first bullet point you see, or that first box you see there with the educational integration. It does need to be directly related to your program of study, but most schools will allow you the opportunity to explain how it's related to your program of study. The example that I tend to go back to is maybe somebody's in a business program, a bachelor's of business administration or an MBA, but the CPT position they have is as a software engineer. And then the question becomes, okay, well, isn't this a better internship for maybe somebody in an engineering program or a computer science program? But then if you say, well, the work that I do, I work on an app and I track user engagement and time on task, because the research shows that the longer users are in the app, the more revenue is generated. You're tying your software engineering back to business. And that's where sometimes, different schools will coach students through that more so than others. Some schools will just say, nope, doesn't qualify and move on to the next. Some schools will take the time to explain to you how to, make this connection, but it is your responsibility as the international student applying for CPT to make that direct tie-in to your program of study. Um, because at this point for CPT, it is the institution that's approving it, which is different than OPT where USCIS approves it. Um, CPT eligibility requirements are going to vary slightly from school to school, but the overarching themes here are that you do have to be enrolled in a full program of study. Most programs, you have to be enrolled for at least one academic year before you're eligible for CPT. There are expectations for graduate programs, meaning programs that are master's or doctorate level that allow for immediate participation in CPT. But for every bachelor's program and many master's and doctorate programs, you do have to complete 1 year of the program first. And so if you're, getting into your last year of college, you're starting to look at master's programs and you want to do CPT right away, this is something to check out as part of the admissions and intake process is CPT allowed from the beginning of your program? And I know that we like to default to saying day one CPT and Googling day one CPT and things like that. There are a lot of helpful companies which will help route you to schools that do that. But if you're looking for day one CPT to be written on a school's website, most of the time they're not going to have that. And that's just to avoid, unwanted regulatory attention. Um, like I've already mentioned, academic standing. I belabored that point already. We don't need to go over it further. Again, the CPT has to have some form of relationship to your program so that the DSO can authorize it. The two major types of CPT authorization are part-time and full-time CPT. The reason that this matters is if you do more than 12 months of full-time CPT, you lose your OPT eligibility after you graduate. Just real quick, for those of you that don't know, OPT is optional practical training. It's work you can do after you graduate. So say you do 4 years here at bachelor's level, you can have 1 year to stay and work in the US through OPT, but that goes away the instant you hit 1 year or more of full-time CPT. And that takes away your STEM OPT eligibility too if you're in a STEM OPT program. So if that's something that's important to you, make sure you can do as much part-time CPT as you want. You can do some full-time CPT, but you should end that after 11 months. And the big distinguisher here is part-time CPT is capped at 20 hours per week. Full-time CPT is 21 hours per week or more. And again, I'm not saying it's fair. I'm just saying this is how it is. It's going to be your responsibility as an international student to be aware of this and to track it. Because lots of US employers, we go by a different standard of part-time. For us, under 30 hours is considered part-time. So the company will tell you, yes, this is a part-time position, and then they'll schedule you for 25, 28 hours per week. It's going to be your responsibility to say, well, actually, in my case, I need to stay at 20 hours per week tops. If you want to if you're trying to stay at part-time CPT, if you're doing full-time, that's fine. It's just important that you know what the difference is so that you can plan your own future accordingly. And I was just having a conversation about this with a doctorate student yesterday. He was asking me if he should work full-time CPT for his entire program and just, forfeit his OPT because his doctorate program is going to be 4 to 5 years. And he's like, well, 5 years is longer than 1 year. So shouldn't I just work full-time for the whole 5 years? And I say that's a fair trade-off. It's something a lot of people do. And it's totally fine as long as you're making an informed decision. That's the important part here. So again, there's going to be some variance from school to school, but in general, the CPT approval process is going to require you to get a job offer first, and then it goes to the school for approval. You're going to submit the application that the school requires. And assuming you get approved, they're going to give you the I-20 that has the work authorization on page 2. At the top, there's a section titled Employment Authorization, and that's where the employment will be. Now, some companies who are a bit more refined in their understanding of working with international students, they might expect you to have an EAD card. It looks like an actual card. That's where you get on OPT, or if you're pending green card or something like that. So again, you can explain, well, while I'm here, while I'm on CPT, the I-20 is my evidence of legal work authorization. And you can show in the top left-hand corner it says that there's that's issued under the direction of the Department of Homeland Security. So it is a official government documentation. That's where the term DSO comes from. It's literally a designated school official, an official designated by the school to be able to sign these documents on behalf of DHS. And if they have any questions about the I-9, it's list C, item number 7, the Department of Homeland Security approval. That's where the I-20 qualifies as work authorization verification for the I-9 form. So critical things to keep in mind when you're doing CPT, you can never start early, like e- ever. So when I started doing this back in the Obama administration, we could backdate CPT start dates. So if Garrett came up to me and said, "Oh, hey Josh, I made a mistake. I started working from this company on September 1st. I thought I emailed you. Can you help me out?" Now, not every school would do it, but I had the capability in the SEVA system to go in and backdate the approval. Uh, what would happen in practice lots of times is Gary would email me, "Hey Josh, I have a new company. I'm going to start on Monday." I'd say, "Great, you're approved. I'll send you the I-20 soon." And even if I got it to him on like Wednesday or Thursday that week, I would give him the Monday start date because that's what I had promised him in the email. But now the way CVIS works, and CVIS is the online database that your school works out of where they update your international student record. And it's an online database, an online information system. If I try to enter a date earlier than today, I get an error message. It literally will not process. So you need to let your school official know, and you need to wait until you get approved because they can't backdate the start dates. And anytime that you work before you get that I-20 with the start date, it is officially unlawful employment, which we've seen the current administration be especially strict around. Um, I've already talked about the impact on OPT. Again, you can do some full-time CPT during your program. You just can't exceed 12 months if you want to maintain that OPT eligibility. CPT is specific to one employer. I have seen students say, "Well, I thought that I was okay because I had CPT. I just changed my company." But if you look at the I-20, it says the company name, the company, the city and state. So it is employer specific. So if you are going to change CPT, you need to let your DSO know, and you need to let them know ahead of time according to the same processing time that the school has to give them time so you get that approval, you get that new I-20 before you start with the new company. So now that we've talked about CPT a little bit, I'm going to transition here into different ways that international students can find internship opportunities besides for signing up with Northbridge. And if you haven't done that already, you need to do that right now because one of the worst things to happen to international students, and I see it happen every single term, is somebody goes through the job search process. They go through 3 or 4 interviews. They're in this wheelhouse in the spinning wheel for 4, 5, 6 weeks, only to get to the very end and have the employer say, "Oh, you need to sign a CPT document. I'm not comfortable doing that." And it's heartbreaking. And in schools, as designated school officials, we're we're empathetic to it, but we have to maintain our regulatory compliance. So we're not allowed to authorized CPT without full documentation. One of the many benefits that Northbridge offers is it has a curated list of employers who have already been shown and proven to be friendly towards working with international students. So you don't have to worry about that when you get to that phase in the interview. Some other ways that you can start going about this is uh, I'm going to start with it. It sounds cliche, but you'd be very surprised how few people actually take advantage of their university's career services office. I'm very close with several people in career services at my school, and they are always trying to get out in front of students, book more appointments, do more resume reviews, more mock interviews. So don't be shy about taking advantage of your school's career services office. Another thing that I struggled with personally when I was, when I was doing like my graduate program, for example. Everybody says to do professional networking. Very few people will tell you actually how to do that. And so then, we're kind of flowing in the wind. So we think that that means reaching out to people on LinkedIn and saying, "Hey, I just graduated from this field. Are you hiring?" And we feel kind of clunky about that because it is a bit clunky. But what we can do is we can start following people on LinkedIn, start engaging with their content. When they post, you can like, make a comment. People do notice these things, and then maybe down the road, an opportunity at their place comes up, and your name now it looks familiar to them. And this is where, it's one of those things. There's not an immediate payoff to it in the short term, but it builds in the long term because I'll talk about a couple points and I'll move on from this one. So, you know, like, yeah, let's say, you really want to work at, pick a school. You really want to work at Notre Dame. You find a bunch of people that work at Notre Dame in the departments you want to work in. You start following them. You start engaging with their content. And maybe not next week, maybe not next month, but maybe in the spring, maybe next summer, an opportunity shows up. You put your application in. Now at that point, you send them a direct message. Hey Garrett, I've been following you for a long time. Really appreciate all the stuff you're putting out. Hey, just want to let you know I just put in for this position at the company. If you have an opportunity to put a word in, or if there's any advice you can give me about the process, I'd really appreciate it. And I'm sorry, I said Notre Dame because I'm in the academic background. It might be Google, it might be Northrop, it might be, Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, it might be anyone, whatever your company is. You can start following people there and going through the same process. The other thing is, you know, this is a long-term play. It's not necessarily the thing that's going to get you a job right now. But the more you build up your network, if you spend any time at all on sites like LinkedIn, you'll see that it shows you how many mutual connections you have with new people. And so there's been several campus presidents, vice chancellors of major universities that I've been able to connect with. I've never met them. I've never spoken with them, but we just so happen to have 50 mutual connections. So I put out the connect request and they see that and they're like, well, this person's in my network. Let me go ahead and accept that. Um, so obviously that's the long-term play here. The shorter term play are these job search platforms. You can and you should, if you have a place that you really want to work, you should monitor their job boards, but also take advantage of these job search platforms, which let you search by job position. I have a couple listed up here, like Handshake and Indeed. One thing I will say about Handshake is I've heard lots of international students say, even though that's marketed as like an internship friendly site, they do there have been struggles hearing back from them. So I almost took them off the sheet, but I actually wanted to put it on there just to call that out. So if that's been your experience in Handshake, it's not uncommon. Indeed is a fantastic job site forum. I've actually over the course of my career gotten 3 jobs off of Indeed. Um, And then I've already mentioned Northbridge for, the job specifically for companies that have already been shown to work with international students. But if you find something on Indeed or a company message board, that's okay. I'm going to talk about how to have those conversations in just a minute here. Last thing is, faculty connections. Your faculty these days in 2025, most companies or most professors don't just, roll out of their on-campus housing, throw on their tweed jackets and walk across the campus quad to class. Most of them are working professionals in their field. So, they might have connections with companies. They might know of different job openings that are opening up. And one of the things that you'll see as you get into the job field is, I'm sorry, can you guys hear my dog in the background? He's outside my window? No? Okay, good. Uh, One of the things that you'll find as you get into your career yourself is lots of these communities are a lot smaller than you think. And people might be at this company right now, but they were at this other company, or they have connections at different companies. So, talk to your faculty about what job opportunities might be available, or think people that they might know in their own network who are looking, because it's one of the great paradoxes right now. It's a very tough job market, but also companies are having a difficult time finding well qualified job applicants. So if you're able to, to talk with your faculty, they might have somebody who's looking for somebody like you that has your experience. So be sure to have those conversations too. So again, all of that is great. Sometimes you're going to get an interview, a cold interview. You have no connections at the company. You applied on a job board. That's fantastic. Where I see international students get tripped up is a lot of them want to jump immediately into discussing their visa status, discussing their work authorization, but they forget that this is a job interview first and foremost. So the most important thing to do in your cover letter, on your resume, and in the interview is to sell yourself based on your skills and qualifications for the position you're interviewing for. So if and when it comes to the point of you actually do get the job offer, then at that point you can start having the conversation with the company about what work authorization looks like. And when you get to that point, now you're far enough along, far enough down the rabbit hole that they've voiced their excitement about you as a candidate. You can start having, this is where, in business classes, we talk about having the negotiations, talking about, negotiating salary, other soft benefits like parking spaces and time off and things of that nature. The visa status is at the same point in the job application frame. It's after the interviews, when you're getting serious, when they're talking about making an offer. And at that point, you can, discuss that, yes, I need you to sign this document, but no, it's not sponsorship. It's just a form that you're signing so that my school can make this approval for me. And I have highlights here of your unique value as an international student that you can offer. Many of these you already know. And on this next slide, I'm going to talk about some of the ways that you can very quickly and simply, show, that this is a legitimate aspect for the company to walk down. Many companies aren't familiar with CPT on their face, and that's okay. Your opportunity is going to be to explain to them in a simple way. If you have to spend 5 minutes explaining to them, at some point they're likely going to check out. They're likely going to be, start developing concerns. You need to give them a 1 to 2 sentence, very quick, very clean explanation that they can internalize and they can then relay up the ladder or with HR or anybody they might need to. And this is where, I go back to Um, if you're familiar with advertising, the most effective ads and the most effective copywriting uses language that's at third grade reading level. And it's not that people aren't smart enough to read beyond that. It's as people, we like simple. We default to wanting to do simple things. And if employers perceive CPT as being too complicated, they will default to let's just hire the domestic candidate and not have to worry about these things. So that's where I'm going to have some language in these next couple slides to make it very easy for you to explain it. Another challenge that could come up is the timing and paperwork delays. Some companies might want some to start right away. Where I see international students get in trouble is they say during the interview process, yes, I can start right away. When you want me to start? I'll start today. I'll start on Monday. But the reality of the situation is the school might need 1 to 2 weeks to to process CPT applications. So the way I encourage students to pitch this is, it's no different than if a company wants to hire somebody who's already working for a different company. If I wanted to hire somebody, I've hired dozens of people in my career, and there's been times I've been hiring people in times of great need, but when I say to the candidate, when can you start? And they say, I can start 2 weeks from the date of an offer. That's 100% reasonable. Even if I want somebody to start tomorrow, if they need to give their employer 2 weeks, I respect that as an employer because I would want them to do the same thing if they were ever to leave my company. So just say it the same way. I'll need 2 weeks from the date of an offer to start. And you make that expectation clear up front. And then you package the CPT documentation as part of the offer. Well, to me, I need this signed, and then, that starts the clock and when I can start the position. And then it puts it more in, what we say in psychology as like a schema, like a framework. It's a pattern that the employers are already familiar with. Okay, we want to hire this person, they need 2 weeks. It's much more palatable, much more easy for them to intake it when it's presented that way. And of course, academic balance can be a challenge here because we do want to be good for a good employee for our worker. We do want to get promotions. We do want to make sure that we're establishing ourselves and positioning ourselves for raises. So when companies ask us to work late, we're inclined to say yes. But there needs to be a balance of navigating, I can work late Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, but I have classes on Wednesdays and Fridays. So those days I do need to be done at 5. And people have different professional requirements, different personal
Conference.
requirements. You're not asking to get out of work early. You're just saying I have to leave on time on these days. So some strategies to overcome barriers. I've talked about some of them already, but here's one script for you to use. CPT allows international students to work without employers having to sponsor me. My school handles the process. I just need a couple weeks for authorization. Nice and easy, very low lift on the employer's part. When you think about adding CPT, start that process early. In the United States, lots of job applications take a long time these days. Now, if you're doing an entry level or what we now call a frontline position, especially at organizations of particularly high need, like restaurants and things of that nature, you might be able to get in earlier. But lots of these professional organizations, office job type things, they do take months to go through the process. So start that process early. Be aware of the different start points that your university offers. Um, you know, Maybe you want to add CPT for the spring semester, but okay, if I can't add it in January, if I don't get the job offer yet, by that point, is there another opportunity? Is there a mid-semester start? Can I do it in the summer, or will I have to wait for fall? Just be aware of your specific university's CPT windows and when you can add those. And again, campus resources are a fantastic thing to leverage, especially if you're at one of these larger schools that have lots of on-campus opportunities for you. And I didn't create a slide for this, but I'll share. You know, let's say you work, let's say you go to school at, I already said Notre Dame. Let's say you go to school at Notre Dame or University of Oklahoma. These places with like 20, 30, 40,000 students. There's on-campus opportunities for you to start. You do not need CPT. You can start right away, because it's an on-campus employer, whether that's, working at the Chipotle that's located in the campus food court, or working in the library, or, timing for swim meets, whatever it is. On-campus employment, is different than working off-site. CPT is required for any work that's off campus or on campus work that's full time, meaning 21 hours per week or more. But if you're looking for an on campus position, 20 hours per week or less, you can go ahead and do that at any time. You just need to be able to, apply for the position and get the position offered. Um, okay, I think I have a duplicate here. All right, so here's, a little short cheat sheet I put together of why employers should hire F1 international students for their positions. Again, there's no sponsorship required. Lots of companies will erroneously think that they need to sponsor you because they immediately think of H-1B. But through CPT, the school is providing the work authorization. The school oftentimes is only looking for a verification of the educational nature of the position, or to put it more simply, that the position is related to their program of study in some way. Obviously, as an international student, you have a diverse perspective and you bring your own unique, global perspective into the position. Inclusion, the Trump administration has forced lots of companies to remove DEI specifically from their core values, but lots of companies still value inclusivity, diversity of thought, and things of that nature. And international students obviously bring that in by nature of your unique life experience. Those of us who've worked with international students know they're highly motivated and they have a global access to a global network. So you bring a lot of very high skill, high leverage skills and abilities that maybe a domestic job candidate doesn't have. So putting this into action here, um, you know, what I encourage international students to do first and foremost is to define the career goals and what that looks like. Um, you know, it sounds very basic. It's very easy to go through an academic program and then graduate and then say, now what? Now what do I do? Because the school lays everything out for you very cleanly, but then you graduate and you go, okay, well, I just got a bachelor's in psychology. That was me all the way back in 2006. I just dated myself. I don't know why I did that. But I graduated with a degree in psychology. I'm like, okay, well, I can't be a psychologist because I don't have a graduate degree. So what do I do now? So take some time and define those career goals and what that means for you, whether it's want to work as in a specific industry, whether it's want to do specific types of work. My background is, from psychology, I did decide that I wanted to work in schools. I got my master's in education. I thought that I was going to work as a guidance counselor in a middle school or a high school with kids from 12 to 18. I ended up doing the same type of work, but in colleges. And then through my doing that type of student advising in colleges, I transitioned into working in international affairs. It's different than what I got my master's in education in, but the values that I had, the career goals that I have, those are all aligned. It's working with students, it's helping people put themselves and their families in the position to succeed. And I still get to do that. The way that I'm doing it just looks a little bit different. So define your career goals, what's important to you. Connect with your advisors to understand the CPT application process and timeline at your specific school. Then start launching those applications 3 to 4 months before you want to start working. If you want to start working right away, understand that you may need to lower the bar in terms of the level of work that you're applying for. But lots of times, and I've heard this throughout my career, and it remains to be true. The hardest job to get is the first job. The easiest job to get is the next job. And that's not to say that, again, the next job is easy, but it's easier to get another job when you're already working for somebody else. And then after you do get that job offer, secure that CPT authorization and start working after you get the I-20 with the work authorization listed in there. And then, of course, excel in your role, make yourself indispensable to the company. And I don't have a slide for this either, but I'll say this. There's been lots of questions and concerns about the new $100,000 H-1B fee that the Trump administration just enacted. At this point, it appears that that $100,000 fee is specific to workers outside of the US, that so the companies can't get an H-1B for somebody who's in a foreign country and bring them into the US. It's not yet confirmed that that would apply towards people that are already here applying for the H-1B lottery. So um, it's unknown, it is unclear, but don't write off H-1B as an option for you just quite yet. Here's the essential student checklist. I'm sorry, I kind of got split up a bit here. So prepare those application materials. Cover letters and resumes are a pain in the rear end. I know, but at least have your template that you can use, and then adjust them based on the employer, right? It's really easy nowadays to tailor resumes and cover letters using ChatGPT. But if you use ChatGPT to write your resume or write your cover letter, it's going to sound generic. It's going to sound like it came out from a computer. So I always recommend people to develop their own version and then use ChatGPT to refine it. And one of the things that I do in my community, which I'll talk about in a second here, is I have proven templates, proven um, frameworks to put into ChatGPT, which takes the template that you have and tailors them for and optimizes them for specific companies. You're also going to want to do this with your LinkedIn profile if you don't have one yet. Never too late to start. It's that old saying, the best time to start was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So don't feel shy if you haven't started one yet. That's fine. Just go ahead and get started now. Meet with the advisors, understand the CPT requirements at your school, start developing those CPT explanation templates for employers, start rehearsing it, start drilling it so that you can just let those 2 to 3 sentences roll off your tongue if and when it gets to the point where you're asked about it. And again, be aware of the timelines, when you can add CPT for your specific school. Um, Essential resources of support. I've talked about these a bit already. Your school career center, they are underutilized at every single school. I know career services advisors at multiple institutions. They're not going to do everything for you, but they can help you and they want to. But they need you to reach out and make appointments and follow the guidance that they're providing. My Ask a DSO community, that's the company that I founded because in my 9 years of working with international students, I discovered that as many resources as I tried to provide as a director of international student or of international affairs, there were still needs that students had on an individual level that the university just couldn't meet. And so that's why I created the Ask a DSO community, both to be able to provide this kind of guidance and resources, as well as a supportive network of international students supporting each other on the goals and sharing the resources, plus a way for me to easily share my unfiltered takes on the things that are late breaking. So institutions have to go through approval processes. VPs, general counsel want to look at things before they get disseminated. in the Ask a DSO community. I'm reading things the day they come out, sending my thoughts and feedback and guidance on it, and then updates obviously as it comes. Um, Official government resources like USCIS and ICE, and the White House website, are very helpful. Following Donald Trump on Truth Social might not be a bad idea because he does share a lot of things directly with people that way. Even if you don't want to follow him for personal reasons, it could be an information source for you. And again, Northbridge helps bridge the gaps between international students and those employers who are friendly to international students. So I definitely recommend them as a very high leverage resource for you. And then for the immediate steps, you know, like that, this is all well and good so far. What you can start doing this week is drafting those goals and some companies or industries that you want to work in. Schedule that meeting with your DSO, even if you're not going to apply for for CPT yet. You can start learning about the process and start updating your resume and LinkedIn profiles and building that support network. Oops. Okay. And if you're ready to build a roadmap, I am going to put a link in the chat here. I'm going to give out a free 15-minute roadmap session for everybody that's here. If you're interested, you can go ahead, book 15 minutes with me. We'll talk about your situation, where you are, what your goals are. We can map out CPT versus OPT. And I'll put that in the chat here. And also I'll put my LinkedIn in here. Sorry, I know it's been in the top of the screen being all clunky here this entire time. But I'll put that in the chat box for you here. And I know I went a little bit longer than I had planned, but Gert, I know that we did want to leave sometimes for question and answers with everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much, Josh. I think this was super um, insightful. You definitely also touched on some things that are also interesting for me. So I'm sure it is for everybody that's attending. Um, yeah, I saw there was a lot of traffic in the chat. How should we do it with the questions? I think you have already answered a few of those questions. So yeah, Josh, if you can maybe still share like the links of your booking and your LinkedIn as well, so people can reach out to you. Um, what do you think is the best way to go with the questions?
Maybe we can dive into the chat. I prefer during questions and answers to answer general questions first. It can help the most amount of people. But let me see in here. Um, Let me see if there's any general ones we can go over. Okay, here's one that's a good question to ask. It comes up relatively frequently. Um, you know, the the CPT is part-time or full-time based on 20 hours per week or more. Well, can I go over 1 week and then compensate the next week? So the example Venus gave here is working 10 hours 1 week and then doing 30 hours the next week. Um, Generally, I advise against doing that because the regulations do say hours per week. And with the current administration, as much as they're being very nitpicky, they actually even added an OPT unemployment calendar to the SEVA system. So I wouldn't recommend it because sooner or later you apply for OPT, H-1B, green card. They might ask for your pay stubs, and if it shows that you exceeded part-time status, it could be considered a violation. So I wouldn't recommend doing it. Hmm. Another good question here about will doing full-time CPT impact the 12 months of OPT? Um, as long as you don't do more than 12 months of full-time CPT, you still get the full 12 months of post-completion OPT. So it's not like I do 3 months of full-time CPT and then I'm only eligible for 9 months of OPT. You still get the full 12 months, regardless of, just you can't exceed 12 months of full-time CPT. Prudence has the $1 million question here. How do we make employers accept CPT? Um, we can't make it. We can only explain to it. You can lead a horse to water. You can't make him drink. But having people in your corner, having clear, simple answers right away, is very helpful. Things that can travel through the telephone very quickly and easily. And depending on your school, sometimes DSOs will be willing to, or career services will be willing to jump on the phone with employers and explain it to. If they're not willing to jump on the phone, sometimes they'll be willing to write a letter of support. And yeah, having it shouldn't be this way. I'm not talking about how things should be, but the way things are. Sometimes having a letter from an American with an American institution adds a level of credibility that makes the employer feel more comfortable. So, there are some different ways that we can encourage them to accept CPT. And yeah, some positions clearly state they're not accepting CPT or OPT. It's very sad, but it does save us the time and effort. Just okay, move on. Juan comes in here. Hey Juan, good to see you again. He's absolutely right. It's important to manage expectations and anxiety. It's not uncommon to put out a bunch of applications and not hear back. It's also not uncommon to get an interview, have a good interview, and still not get the job offer. It's unfortunate. I've seen it being on the other side of the desk now, hiring people for the last 9 years. Sometimes I have two great candidates, and it breaks my heart to not be able to hire both of them, but I only have one open slot. So sometimes difficult decisions need to be made. Sometimes it's because one person has a slight edge over the other. Sometimes it's just what I feel the team needs now. This person would be good for reasons X. This person would be good for reasons Y. Right now, the team needs more Y than X. So, it's unfortunate. And as much as you can, to focus on what you can control, you putting out your applications, you tailoring your cover letters and resumes, and you preparing for when you do go into these interviews so that you're able to do a good job. And, you know, it's not going to guarantee results. I've in my personal life had times where I had one time where I was unemployed for 6 months, one time where I was unemployed for 9 months. So like, I don't say this flippantly. I know that it's hard, but as much as you can, try to be patient and just trust the process. Um, and like obviously as international students, we're operating on different timelines. Sometimes it's good to take a job at a lower level than what you're looking for just so that you're not, still on OPT and getting unemployment. That's an option for you too. Okay. Looks like we're running a bit out of time here, Garrett. Unfortunately, I do have a hard cutoff at 4. I have institutional obligations. Is there one or two questions in here that you see or that you have that we want to make sure that we cover?
I think I saw one very good question. Where is it? It was from Almona. The question is, should we check yes for the question, will you now or in the future need sponsorship?
That's a great question. You and I have talked about this, Garrett. If an H-1B is part of your long-term goals, I would encourage you to be honest about it up front. Because if you say no, and then 2 years later, you start bringing it up, that could be held against you. So, if H-1B is not part of your goals, you can honestly say no. Even though you're an international student, even though you may need them to sign a cooperative agreement for you, that's not the same as sponsorship. So you can say no in here, But if you are going to want sponsorship in the future, I would encourage you to be honest in the, on the forefront. And Joshua Gorey shared a great article on how to use AI for cover letters and resumes. That was at 12:47. So go back, be sure to go back through the chat and get that. Thanks for sharing that, Joshua. Nice beard, by the way. Something about Joshua's and beards. Maybe we can get one more, Garrett.
Okay. I don't know if you see one.
One for you, Garrett. We'll let you get one. Does Northbridge help students connect with them? Oh, you already replied to that one.
Yeah, I
Okay.
replied. So
Okay, so I'll end on this one. Yagni asked it, and it's a common one. Can we do full-time CPT for 11 months? Yes, you can. And yes, you can do full-time CPT for 11 months and then do more time on part-time CPT. You can do part-time CPT for 2 years. Part-time CPT doesn't impact it at all, your OPT eligibility, I mean. But once you exceed 12 months, that's when you're ineligible for CPT, for OPT.
all right. I think this was great. I know there are a few more questions, but Josh shared his LinkedIn and his booking link as well. So please, I definitely encourage everybody to schedule a call with him. Um, and if you have any other questions regarding Northbridge, feel free to reach out to me. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. And yeah, Josh, thank you so much for doing this. I think this was definitely a helpful session. And we recorded this meeting and we will post this tomorrow on YouTube. So if you want to rewatch certain things, the link will be out there. Yeah, Josh, thank you so much again. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Garrett. And thank you, those of you sending me DMs. I see that some of you have reached out saying you're going to schedule. Awesome. I can't reply to everybody right now, but I look forward to mapping out your future with you. Thank you, Garrett, and thank you, everybody. We'll be
All
in
right.
touch.
Thank you so much.